In this video, I'm going to share with you some upcycle projects I've came up with, repurposing cardboard boxes, book pages, and just scrap pages that you might have that you might like. Some of them are newly printed as well. We're going to use cardboard boxes that have lids on them, or we're adding lids, and some plastic baggies such as this one, as well as like a bakery box here. And this is a thicker plastic bag. These are my favorite glues and glue sticks. And these are newly printed pages with my Epson Incotank printer. Here you can see where I'm deconstructing a box and I'm reshaping it into a magazine file organizer. It's called something like that. It's basically one of those ones that's at a slant that you can see all your magazines or books in. And I'm putting this in my craft space. And you just want to make sure that you cut the sides with the angle going the same way before you glue it together. It just makes it a little bit easier. And I also use some reinforcements to strengthen the flaps at the top. And voila, I went ahead and decoupaged it with book pages upcycled on the inside and printed out pages on the outside with my Epson Incotank, and those pages are from the Graphics Fairy blog, which the majority of the pages that I use are. Also, Canva has a really nice variety of floral backgrounds and similar things to print. Now, I've used this X-Acto tool that I've literally had for like 20 years. I will look for one to see if I can find a similar one. And I cut out these cardboard boxes. I used the first one as a template to make several. And I used the bakery box type of plastic to make little windows that I put in between the layers. And you can see on this one where it was like the first one I cut out a little too skinny. So I just added another piece on the outside. So after you have your cardboard cut out, you want to decoupage, and I'm using the Mod Podge dishwasher safe, which is my new favorite. You can use Elmer's school glue or any regular school glue type of white glue, I should say. And if you use school glue, you can water it down and stretch it a little bit farther as well. But anyways, I've lined these with book pages. And the best part about this is you can decorate them however you want. And I chose colors that I thought represented each season fairly well. This was intended as the spring box that has more pinks, and I added photos of bees and such. This one is supposed to be the summer box, so it's more blues and a little more hot pinks. And I added the flower and butterflies, and this pumpkin sort of colored box. I think the paper is actually called pumpkin on the color, but I did add a graphic with a pumpkin on it. And then it's meant as the fall. And finally, the winter style box in the green. Now, for this next project, I'm using these templates that are actually from the Graphics Fairy blog. But you don't technically need a template. You can also find templates in other places by doing a web search or maybe Pinterest or Etsy. But these ones I saved from the Graphics Fairy blog. And I should also mention again that some of the stuff is free on there and some of the stuff is because of the monthly subscription that you have to pay for to print certain things. These are printed on a cardstock. You can use regular printer paper as well as like thicker papers. You could also use cardstock saved from like a cereal box or something and decoupage paper onto them. You could even just paint the cereal box and stencil them with your own designs. You can really be creative. However, though, I am using cardstock and I like these templates. You could draw your own heart if you wanted to do a little heart window, which is what we're doing here. And I also did a few different templates. One is like a circle and one is an oval and a square. So you could really be creative and make your own, or go to the Graphics Fairy blog and look through and see if you can find these particular templates. Because it is a lot of fun to look at them, and it is also inspiring to even just to look on there to see what they have. Anyways, I used some of the bags, the plastic bags, to make this little window, and I glued them in with the hot glue. Now, depending on like how thick your bag is, you want to be careful that you don't melt the bag with the glue, and you don't want to burn your hand and stuff. So be careful when you're working with upcycling stuff. Make sure you're using safety when you're using X-Acto knives and everything like that. So anyways, I also labeled these, and I made some labels. I'm going to be putting some applique templates that I have, and I have ones for different seasons that I use to make pillows with, as well as wall hangings and other sewing and crafting things. So you can do these seasonally, or you can do whatever subject matter you like and put whatever you want in them. There was a viewer that asked about ideas for organizing decorative napkins for decoupaging, so you can see them. So I thought to share some of these ideas with the little windows in them so you can actually see the objects. Another thing about these little, they're sort of like manila folder envelopes that you're making your own. You can be really creative and dazzle them up however you want. You could even put 3D stuff on there like beads and baubles if you use a good glue. But I have like these little things out of the fortune cookies when my husband and I occasionally go to Panda Express over the years, and I've saved ones that I like. And I glued them on the little flap. I thought it was a good place for like a little inspirational quote. And it's also like a nice little memory for me there too. So the final project here, I'm making, it's an art book, and it's sort of in the style of a traveler's notebook, if you've ever heard of that. I'm using a double-walled cardboard, so it's like very thick. And if you don't have that, you can just glue together a couple layers of cardboard. But my husband brought the double-walled cardboard home from work, as well as those large plastic bags. He saves things like that for me for projects like this, because they'll just go in the trash at his job. So what I did was I measured the size that I want and created, it's almost like a 3-ring binder, the shape of it. And then I decoupaged the papers on it that I chose or I wanted. And I ended up poking 3 holes at the binding. And I used this elastic cording, and I basically just looped it around, and I ended up with like 3 going through each hole. Now, if you don't have this elastic cording, you could get away with any kind of cording there. And it doesn't have to be one continuous. You could tie like as many as you wanted on there, honestly. If you have not heard of a traveler's notebook, you can look that up on like Pinterest or anywhere. I'm sure here on YouTube has a lot of tutorials. This is just a part of that concept I tried to use for the binding. And I used some ribbon scraps to cover it and try to make it like pretty, sort of like that castle core vibe that's going around. It's one of the new aesthetics. And I'll be gluing some pockets on each one of these pages, which I also made just by measuring and cutting out some old cardstock pages that I had. and I glued them together to make like one very large page to fit in there. And I'm going to glue fabric swatches and stuff. But anyways, thank you so much for watching.